have you here. Oh, thank you for that. We are recording this workshop today. I know that there was a barbecue at the school, so for all the parents who are showing up, thank you. I know it's been a tight, busy evening for all of you. So I'd like to start this this presentation today by recognizing that we are visitors on this land and acknowledging that we are gathered together this evening on the traditional territory of the Squamish peoples. I'd also like to acknowledge that Friday is the Truth and Reconciliation Day, so take some time to learn about the land that we're on and the Squamish peoples. I will now introduce our team today. So we've got a team from the town of Gibsons, and we've also got a team from Urban Systems. So I am Leslie Ann Stotts. I'm the Director of Planning at the town of Gibsons. And I used to live in this neighborhood, so I understand and know the area very well. And I see a lot of my old neighbors in this webinar tonight. I'd also like to introduce Manny Machado. He is our Chief Administrative Officer, and he has been acting as the Director of Infrastructure Services for the last while as well. Elizabeth Quayle is our Communications Coordinator. I don't know if she's in here yet, but she does a lot of the communications and shares a lot of information on our website and puts out newsletters and stuff like that to help inform the community on some of the work that we're doing. We've also got Tyler Musgrove here. He is acting Capital Projects Coordinator right now. He will be assisting the Urban Systems team and contractors in implementing some of the active travel improvements that would be happening as part of the grant, which we'll talk about later tonight. So that's the team from the town who's here tonight. And from Urban Systems, we've got Fujio Liu. He is an Urban Systems transportation engineer in training. Fujio has been assisting the town with traffic and engineering and active transportation projects. We've also got Robbie Liu, who is the Urban Systems project engineer. Robbie has been assisting the town with our active transportation program altogether. And we've also got Devin Jennings Lander, sorry, Devin. She is the transportation and engagement consultant with Urban Systems. Devin has been helping to prepare materials for tonight's meeting and will be our go-to for any IT troubleshooting tonight. So that is our team here today. So here is the agenda that we're going to discuss tonight. We'll talk about some active transportation in Gibsons, some projects that are underway, and we're going to introduce active transportation and traffic calming. So the Urban Systems team will talk about what it is, why it's important, and what the different types of active transportation and traffic calming facilities that can be installed. And then we're going to break up into a workshop. So the plan is to have some breakout groups, and we're going to workshop some ideas for Glassford Road and for Gower Point Road as well. Devin, I'll let you introduce this slide.
Perfect. Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining tonight. I'm sure lots of you are familiar with Zoom and you've all made it on here, which is great. I just wanted to do a quick refresher for some of the tools here that we'll be using. So you'll see in your bottom left-hand corner of the screen, your audio and video settings. So you're welcome to keep your camera on, but or off, it's up to you. But if you want to swap between the two, the toggle's down there. And we will ask that you stay muted throughout the presentation, just to cut down on video or on audio interference. But we will encourage you to be participating in the workshop portion closer to the end of the presentation. So you'll be able to toggle off and on of mute there. We'll also ask that if you do have questions throughout it, you can do it through the chat function. So that's there in the bottom sort of center of your screen, where you can view participants in chat windows, and also reactions down there. So if you wanted to raise your hand, if you have any questions throughout, you're welcome to do that as well, and we'll call on you that way. I also just want to flag that we do have the wait room staying on for participants. So for any reason you need to duck out of the Zoom meeting, or if you get booted off for any reason, no problem, join back in. It might just take us a second to get you back into the room. And if you have any questions, you're more than welcome to send them to me through the messaging system. Sorry, I just have a note here about renaming as well. So if you hover over your name, and if you want to rename yourself, you should see an option that says more, and there should be a rename about halfway through that menu there. So if you're under an alias right now and want to have your actual name there so that we can call on you appropriately, you're welcome to rename yourself there. And I can help walk you through it as well through the chat function as well if you're having difficulties there. I'll pass it back to you.
Thank you, Devin. I also wanted to introduce, we've got two counselors here. I see, and it's not in alphabetical order here, but I see Councillor Kroll is in the audience today, and we've also got Councillor DeAndrade in the audience. And those are the two counselors I see, and we might have more counselors come in and join us at some point. Okay, next slide, please. Thank you. So active transportation in Gibsons. So our council has committed to developing a comprehensive active transportation network. And on the right here, you'll see a map, which is called Map 3 Trail and Cycle Network. This map was updated in August, I believe it's 2014, and it was updated before it went into our OCP. And this has been a long established transportation network map that we have for the town of Gibsons. The red lines show the cycling network, and the blue lines show the pedestrian network. So that's what we've got right now, and that's what we're basing a lot of the network improvements and connections on. In March 2021, the town received a grant to be used to complete safe, continuous active transportation links in Lower Gibsons and Upper Gibsons. And we are still improving some areas with that grant money. In 2021, we completed the Gibsons Connector project. So we installed a downhill bike lane between School Road and North Fletcher Road. And we also modified North Fletcher Road. So if you go and take a look at North Fletcher Road, you'll see it's quite different. It's got a really nice curvy road there. We're also recently, our council approved some funding in the grant application, which we will be applying for before the end of the year. And that is to develop an active transportation network plan for the town of Gibsons. So this would be a new plan and next steps. And the goal here is to update the maps that you're seeing on this page and look at active transportation within Gibsons and through Gibsons through to the regional district as well. So that's a future project. Next slide, thank you. So current projects. Under the grant, we have the following projects that we're working on. So one is Marine Drive, so coming into Lower Gibsons. There are some improvements on Payne Road and Venture Way as well, and Reed Road as well. But tonight, for the purpose of tonight's meeting, we're going to focus on the Glassford Road improvements and the Gower Point Road improvements. And I'll pass it over to Fujio to take it from here. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Leslie-Ann. Hi, everyone. This is a great opportunity. Thank you for this chance to speak to you today. Yeah, and I'm just going to go over some of the some background to active transportation, just for the chance for us to kind of really embrace what it is and what kind of facilities there are available, and I'm just gonna talk about the range of options there are, and hopefully that will facilitate some collaborative discussions later on in our workshop with your fellow neighbors and residents that can come to some really great chances to bring your opinions. So I'm gonna get right ahead. So what is active transportation? Active transportation basically, there's a range of definitions out there, but really it's just any method of human powered transportation. So you can think about walking, jogging, cycling. Those are probably the typical things that come to mind. But as we are, progressing into the 21st century, there's a lot more alternative kind of modes out there that are starting to become more popular, like rollerblading, scootering, e-biking, using a wheelchair, skateboarding. So all that is to say, it's basically an active way to move around. And I will include taking transit as well, just for the fact that you are still required to kind of walk or reach the bus stop through your own means, and that contributes to the active transportation atmosphere. And this I'm going to talk about a bit about the benefits of active transportation. A lot of this won't be brand new to you, I'm sure. But it's a great way, first of all, to encourage and provide more opportunities to travel actively around the neighborhood, around the town. So kind of not just only relying on driving and kind of being dependent on only one auto mode in the neighborhood. And this plays an important part in enhancing our community's health, environment, and economy. I'm sure it's not, it's pretty evident that you can see these benefits in our own lives, such as improved focus, physical health, community connections, environmental sustainability, reduces traffic on the road, improves safety, as well as builds confidence and independence for our youth, who, a lot of them can't drive just yet, and still provides more opportunity for them to move around. So with that caveat, we do need to provide safe and comfortable options for these users, and that's one of the most paramount kind of considerations. The next slide here, I'm going to go through some of the types of facilities that can be considered active transportation facilities. I'm sure sidewalks is probably what normally comes to mind for most people, including multi-use pathways that could be along roadside. But you can see here that there's lots of alternatives out there as well, and you can probably find these around Gibsons as well, including trail networks, mostly found in parks or off-street locations, as well as enhanced shoulders for areas that don't have a formalized sidewalk network or facility. So we recognize that these are found around the town, but we also recognize there are gaps in the network. So that's why we're actively working with the town to look into improving and addressing these gaps and provide a more comprehensive network for everybody. And I want to dig a little bit deeper into cycling facilities in particular. So within just this realm of cycling facilities, there are a whole spectrum, basically, of types of facilities that kind of lies in the comfort level for users. So on the left side, you can see there are kind of supporting facilities. These aren't the most ideal facilities if you were to implement it, just because of the amount of comfort and safety, or sense of safety, I would say, for the users. But sometimes when there are limited space or limited other constraints, these are also kind of helpful when you're dedicating kind of routes for some of the stronger cyclists for commuting to work and whatnot. So these include shoulder bikeways and painted bicycle lanes. So they don't provide any physical separation, but they are still visually separated from the roadway for users. And as you get towards the right side, these are more what we consider all ages and abilities facilities, or AAA facilities. So these facilities are what we deem that are comfortable for all ages and abilities, if not most, if not all. And notice that these facilities also come in various forms. So neighborhood bikeways, they are local roads, and often with very low volumes and speeds. So there are criteria set around that for what is qualified under neighborhood bikeways, and they typically have sharrows paved on the road markings themselves to indicate that bikes are encouraged to share the road with drivers. On the center right there, we see protected bike lanes. So these are what you might see or find in some more urban areas or along roads that have a bit higher volumes or speeds. But they provide a physical separation between vehicles and cyclists. And this kind of creates more sense of safety and literal safety benefits for users. And you can, a lot of families would are comfortable taking their children on these facilities. And on the very far right, you see the multi-use paths. They basically take users completely off the road and provide us a completely separate facility for cyclists. And they are typically much wider than sidewalks. So just so that people can pass each other safely when they're using. So as discussed, there are trade-offs with these facilities. When we consider implementing these facilities, it's not just looking at the benefits, but also trade-offs to what are the spaces that we are removing from. It could be parking, it could be loading zones, it could be other space. So oftentimes the space can be a constraint, and that's a big consideration to implementing these facilities. So hopefully this kind of gives a good background and kind of understanding for our workshop later on, as we consider what might be appropriate, what might be desired in your perspective for the corridors that we're looking at today. With that, I will pass it over to Robbie to introduce what traffic calming and what that is.
Thanks, Fujio. So hi, everyone. I'm the project engineer from Urban Systems working with the town, and I'll be going over our traffic calming section for today. So traffic calming, to go over the difference between traffic calming and active transportation on a high level, active transportation is more related to the alternative road users. So the cyclists, the pedestrians, the people in wheelchairs, people on scooters, e-bikes and e-scooters nowadays. So active transportation really focuses on separating those users from the traffic, whereas traffic calming is still based around the motor vehicles and really how we can ensure that they're slowing down through specified areas and making sure that they're paying attention and really just being conscious of the spaces and the users that are moving around them. So really the primary goals of traffic calming are to improve safety for everyone. So that's vehicles as well as the alternative road users, and to preserve neighborhood livability. Overall, the objectives boil down to really two things about reducing speeds and reducing volume, both on the vehicle side. The guiding principles behind traffic calming are they're really more suitable for local roads and collector roads rather than primary vehicle commuting routes, such as arterials. You always want to try to preserve reasonable access. And the thing to keep in mind is that traffic calming is not a universal solution. There isn't a one size fits all with traffic calming. So there's always a combination and a number of different ways to get to the same place. And really traffic calming in terms of the context of this workshop today is really centered around Glassford and what sort of traffic calming measures the community would like to see there and what would work best for all users of that space. So to go through a couple of traffic calming treatments, we want to introduce everyone here today to a couple of different categories of traffic calming treatments. And by no means are these exhaustive categories or exhaustive treatments. There are a number of treatments out there that aren't included here, but these ones are chosen specifically for the context of Gibsons. And obviously, if there are any that are not included in these categories or in these specific treatments that anyone wants to bring up later in our discussion groups, we encourage that discussion as well. So broadly, there's about 4 types of traffic calming treatments. You can see there in the top left, we have vertical deflections. So really includes things like speed humps and cushions and raised crosswalks. Really the intention of this category for traffic calming measures is to physically slow down the speed of traveling vehicles, as well as bring the attention of the driver back into the corridor and to pay attention to their surroundings. Most of the time, it includes elevating a portion of the physical road surface, and it makes it uncomfortable to travel through the corridor above a certain speed limit. The next category we have is horizontal deflections and narrowing. So these are things like curb extensions, traffic circles, and lane narrowing. So again, these are physical changes to the roadway that for the most part are again trying to fulfill the same objectives for traffic calming, which are slowing the number of vehicles, lowering the volume of vehicles using a specific space or corridor, and also lowering the speeds of the vehicles that are using those spaces. Third, in the bottom left, we have pavement markings. So these are things like pavement markings, painted crosswalks, textured surfaces, and you're going to start to see a bit of a pattern here in terms of how these traffic calming treatments fit into the overall objectives of traffic calming. Again, these are more visual. They don't provide any sort of physical deterrent for traveling at certain speeds or for a specific volume of users using a specific corridor. But again, they provide a lot of visual awareness, typically which comes along with lower speeds and a higher awareness of vehicles traveling through a corridor, about the surroundings and anything else that may be going on around them. Finally, we have access restrictions here at the bottom right. So that can take the form of a full/directional closure, or raised medians, which a lot of the time are used to delineate protected bike lanes along a specific corridor with road users. As many of you know, this is one of the temporary measures that was implemented along Glassford back in July of 2021. And we'll touch on that a little bit more when we get to the introductions for Glassford and Gower Point, about some of the details around that closure, and hopefully with that closure, it sparks some of the inspiration for discussion later on when we get to our discussion groups.
All right, thanks, Robbie. With that in mind, I know there's a lot of information that's just been shared. So yeah, when we go through the workshops session, we will revisit some of those things. So it will be up in front and center for you guys, everyone, for discussion. So don't feel like you need to remember everything right now. But we're gonna move into more of the workshops component of this session. But before we get into the actual collaborative component, we will first give a bit of a background to the two corridors that we are discussing today. Sure, these aren't brand new to all of you either. So first of all, Gower Point Road. So the section of Gower Point Road we're looking at today is between Alder Springs, technically to South Fletcher, because it turns into Sharman Creek, Sharman Road further west, but we've included that segment as well, as you can see in the next slide. So this section of Gower Point Road is designated as a collector road in the town's OCP. So what it does is it's not quite a local road. So it is kind of designed to take on more volume than a local road, and it's also designed for more for traffic movement, like goods and people movement. It's also a key connection for Lower Gibsons. As you can see, it kind of crosses relatively in the center of the Lower Gibsons neighborhood. So a lot of ferry traffic have been observed to use this corridor to get in and out of this area. And also it touches and fronts a few different parks and recreation areas. As you can see, Dougal Park is a major park that's right up north of Gower Point Road. So any facilities we consider should kind of take that into consideration. And also it connects to Sharman Creek lands further west, and there are existing trails within that area. So part of the goals for completing the network in this segment is to connect to the existing trails that are available in that area as well. So these are kind of the stepping stones that we're using to develop our options and evaluations and also come up with a design. The town has progressed in our design process for this corridor, and have kind of proposed a recommended design at this time. And by all means, this is not a finalized design. And part of this workshop is to kind of seek everyone's feedback and kind of invite everyone to provide their thoughts and ideas on the design. So just go to the next slide here. There's a lot on this slide here, but at the end of the day, it's kind of presenting the option that we've come up with for the time being, with all the background information we've just presented in mind. The design consists of a multi-use path along the north side of the corridor, so just adjacent to the park, and it kind of narrows. So it ranges between 2.5 meters to 3 meters wide, depending on the roadside constraints and what's available, how much space is available in the different sections. And it also consists of improved crossings at South Fletcher Road and potentially at Alder Spring Road as well. This just provides more safe opportunities for users to cross properly, as has been observed that there are some instances of users kind of diagonally crossing this intersection. It's a very big intersection, and doesn't have a lot of properly marked letdowns and properly installed letdowns on the sidewalks. So part of the improvements also addresses those concerns, and it maintains the existing parking availability. So as part of discussion with the town, this has come up with as a pretty major consideration to retain the amount of parking along this road. As we know, this park is a very well-used recreational area for the community, and oftentimes it requires the full amount of parking space for any special events that might occur in this area. So that was designed with that in mind. Furthermore, as you look further west of the park on Sharman Road, we've designated Cheryl's, as the volume drops off quite significantly in that area, that we deem that it's appropriate for a shared use kind of facility for cyclists that can connect to the English Trail as well as other off-road trails further north. So that is kind of the gist of the design. And yeah, at the next in the next session, in the next component of this session, we will have a chance to gather your inputs on the design. And I'll pass it over to Robbie for Glassford.
Thanks, Fujio. And yeah, for all those listening, we'll get into it a little bit more detail when we get to the discussion portion of the workshop. But everyone here will have an opportunity to provide input both on Gower Point as well as Glassford. So we just want to make sure that we're focusing our kind of efforts on gaining feedback on these two pieces. So Glassford Road, as same with Gower Point Road, I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with the corridor, is a local road designation and is a connecting portion between Gower Point Road. This portion of Glassford has garnered lots of feedback from the community to the town, and was one of the driving factors behind the town engaging Urban and really running this session today. So for those that are unfamiliar, Glassford is a really wide, unmarked street. It really has enough width to provide through room for two opposing vehicles coming and going through the street. The street itself has no sidewalks or curbs and has fairly large gravel shoulders on each side. The local road designation gives it a natural designation for neighborhood bikeways and traffic calming, which are two of the measures that we mentioned earlier on in the active transportation and traffic calming portions of the presentation. As you can see here, it connects in with Gower Point Road, which is where Fujio mentioned the other active transportation improvements are being proposed. However, they don't necessarily have a consistent treatment, nor do they necessarily need one. They're a little bit two kind of distinct scenarios and we want to make sure that we capture feedback on both portions individually. So again, like I mentioned, Glassford Road has gone through a couple of iterations and a number of feedback rounds from the community. So back in 2021 and earlier this year, the town did some engagement with the quarter and local residents on Glassford Road. In July of 2021, last year, the town implemented a temporary closure introduced initially at Plain Lane. And that was coupled with a couple of vehicle volume data collection exercises. And then in June of this year, the temporary closure was moved north of Plain Lane. So again, obviously on the closures themselves, the town acknowledges that they've gotten back a lot of feedback from the community. The original traffic closure was planned as a 6-month trial, and based on feedback and some of the traffic data that was collected. Again, this year, the temporary closure was moved north of Blaine. And really, the town is really looking at Glassford as a bit of a clean slate. They're really hoping to use the feedback that they gained today to really mold and really just mold the solutions that they want to implement moving forward. So really, there's no real restrictions in terms of whether the treatment needs to be a closure or whether it needs to be a neighborhood bikeway. Really, the town is opening to all feedback and all ideas for the people that live on the corridor, as well as really just members of the community. And as part of that exercise, the town also recognizes some of the challenges that the closure has provided along Blaine Lane and Dogwood Road, and really are hoping to gain feedback and kind of remedy those situations as part of this stakeholder engagement as well. So we just want to keep those things in mind as we move forward into the next portion of the workshop, which is the discussion groups.
Perfect. Thanks, Robbie. So yes, you've all had a lot of information sort of thrown at you real quick there, but we're going to be jumping into the next portion here where you'll get to be involved and start having more conversations. I'm going to be putting you into breakout rooms, and you'll be joined by a facilitator from Urban as well as the town, and they'll be guiding you through some questions for Gower Point Road as well as Glassford Road. They'll be taking notes and guiding the questions for you. And so we encourage you to participate with your voices, and you can also send in the chat function within your breakout rooms. If you have any issues, you can shoot me a message. Robbie and Fujo can also send me messages separately, and we'll make sure that everything's running smoothly. So I will get the rooms opened up, and you should be able to head over there in a moment.
All right. I'm sure there are some conversations still going on when that happened in each group, but thanks everyone for your participation. If there's any further thoughts and kind of opinions after this session, I'm sure there are ways that the town has in place for gathering your feedback. But hopefully this session provided kind of some educational information on what these treatments are, helpful with, and what are some of the trade-offs and kind of the disadvantage for everyone to kind of gather opinions on, and kind of acknowledge that there's no one size fits all solution for everyone's options. And that's kind of part of the kind of journey we're on to kind of create a space that can work for everybody. For formal closing, I will want to pass it over to Leslie Ann. Well, I will share my screen here.
Thank you. So we just have a slide here to talk about next steps. Next steps for this project is Urban Systems will be taking this mural board and all the information received from each of the breakout sessions, and they're going to prepare a summary report of what we heard tonight, and then staff will be presenting that to our new council. And then at that point, we'll have some recommendations for council, and council will be deciding on next steps. So hopefully we will we'll be able to get some of that information before the end of the year, but you'll have to keep in touch with us if you're interested to ask us where we're at. So that's it. Thank you everyone for coming and participating tonight. It was interesting. It was fun. We had fun in our breakout group. So hopefully you all did as well.
Sure. Yeah, just on behalf of Urban Systems, yeah, thank you so much for this opportunity, and it was really great in my small groups as well. Just getting to know everyone and chatting with everyone. So thank you. Yeah, have a great night, everyone.